Welcome to this episode of Trade Nuggets, an initiative of Fortress 20 Global. On Trade Nuggets, we present you with simple tips to facilitate your international trade transactions. I'm Adeto Gumadewoye, and I work as a trade and export management consultant. On this episode of Trade Nuggets, I'll be walking you through the step-by-step process of preparing a Proforma invoice. You'll learn what a Proforma invoice is, the elements it contains, and its importance in international trade. If you've ever sold a product or a service, you might have been asked to prepare a Proforma invoice. This request can sometimes be stressful because you want to impress the buyer and secure the sale. However, there's no need to worry. First, let's understand what a Proforma invoice is. In international trade, a Proforma invoice is a preliminary bill of sale sent to the buyers before the shipment or delivery of the goods. Unlike a commercial invoice, it is not a request for payment. Instead, a Proforma invoice is a promise from the seller to the buyer um, to provide the listed goods at specified prices and conditions. Since the Proforma invoice is not a demand for payment, why then is it important in international trade? First is for the quotation and contract basis. As a quotation tool, it provides detailed quotes to the buyer stating the goods or service, the prices, the terms of sale. For contract formation, it helps in forming the basis of the sales contract between the buyer and the seller, specifying the terms and conditions of the trade. The second reason is for facilitating import and export procedures. For customs clearance, customs authorities often use the Proforma invoice to assess duties and taxes. Similarly, importers may need the Proforma invoice to obtain necessary licenses and permits for bringing goods into their country. The third reason is for financial and payment agreements. The Proforma invoice outlines the payment terms, if it's advance payment, letter of credit, or open account. This helps both parties understand their financial obligations. For banking transactions, some banks may require a Proforma invoice to issue letters of credit or other financial instruments used in international trade. The fourth reason is for logistics and shipment planning. For shipping arrangements, it gives the needed details for organizing the transport and insurance of the goods, like the weight, the volume, and the size. For inventory management, it helps both the seller and the buyer plan their inventory and storage needs. The fifth reason why you need a Proforma invoice is for legal and regulatory compliance. The Proforma invoice serves as a legal document in that it outlines both the obligations of the buyer and seller, and in the case of dispute resolution, it can be used to resolve disputes. As a regulatory requirement, it ensures compliance with international trade regulations, including import and export controls and trade agreements. The sixth reason for a Proforma invoice is the calculation of tax and duties. It helps calculate the exact taxes and the duties on goods. That's important because you need to figure out the cost and the prices. It also serves as a proof of the planned transaction so that tax authorities can be informed and it can support tax refunds and tax claims. The seventh reason Proforma invoice are useful is for business planning and forecasting. They help businesses, it could help your business to budget and predict by giving estimates, clear estimates of the cost and revenue from international sales. They also assist with market analysis and planning by offering insights into pricing, demand, and competition. Lastly, performer invoices build trust and transparency. A performer invoice improves the transparency in the transaction by clearly outlining the sales details um, clearly, and this fosters trust between the buyer and the seller. It also helps to build customer confidence by providing detailed information upfront, and that reduces the uncertainties in international trade transactions. Now you know why a performer invoice is important. The next thing is for us to look at the key elements of a performer invoice. There are five of them. The first one is the seller and buyer information. The second is the description of goods and services. The third is the terms of sale. The fourth is the shipping information. The fifth are other relevant information. In summary, a performer invoice is a critical tool in international trade. It helps ensure smooth, transparent, and efficient transactions between the buyer and the seller across borders. Now, let me walk you through the process of preparing a performer invoice. Are you ready? Okay, let's go. The first step is to collect all the relevant information needed to prepare the performer invoice. Step 2 is to create the invoice with the following details. First is the title. Clearly label the document as performer invoice. Assign a unique invoice number for reference. Include the date when the performer invoice is issued. The next thing is to state the validity period during which the performer invoice is valid. Say maybe 30 days, 45 days, or 60 days. I'm still walking you through the step-by-step process of preparing a performer invoice. Step 3 is to add the seller's details. This will typically comprise of the company name, his address, the contact person in the company, the email and phone number, and the tax identification number. Step 4 is similar to step 3, but in step 4, you are adding the buyer information, which also consists of the company name, the address, the contact person, the email and phone number, and the tax identification number. Step 5 is to give a detailed description of the goods or services being sold. For the product description or service description, include the name of the product, the model, and any other important details. Add the HS code, which is the Harmonized System Code for Customs. The quantity, how many units are you selling? The unit price, the price for each product. The total price, which you'll get by calculating by multiplying the quantity by the unit price. Step 6 is to include the terms of sale, the payment terms. How and when will payment be made? Will payment be by advance payment? Will it be by letter of credit? Will it be paid in 30 days? The next thing is the delivery terms, the Incoterms. Specify what Incoterms you are going to be using. Am I going to be using C and F? Am I going to be using FOB? and the place of delivery. Where are the products going to be delivered? The next thing is to add the currency in which the transaction will be conducted. Step 7 is to add the shipping information. What is the shipping method? Are we shipping by land, sea, or air? Where is the port of loading that the ports are going to be loaded from? Where is the port of discharge where the goods are going to be delivered to the other party? What is the estimated shipping date? Um, 30 days from now, 60 days from now, 100 days from now? What's the estimated delivery date? When are you going to get the product at destination? Provide the expected date of delivery. Step 8 is to include your taxes. Calculate the estimated taxes due, the duties due, and any other charges that can be incurred. We're on step 9 now of preparing the Proforma invoice. Calculate the total amount payable. Add up all the line items, include applicable taxes and duties, add any extra charges, sum up the subtotals, taxes, duties, and additional charges. Where you need to put up all other costs, add everything and arrive at a grand total. For step 10, you need to provide additional information. These might include bank details, special instructions, or notes for the buyer, and then signature for the buyer, and um, typically is the authorized representatives from both the buyer and sellers that sign the document. I've taken you through 10 steps to prepare your Proforma invoice. The last step is to review and finalize the Proforma invoice. Double check the information on the Proforma invoice. Review all the details. Check if they are correct and they are complete. Get approval from the internal departments like finance or sales, so that they are also in the know of what is stated on the Proforma invoice. Then send the Proforma invoice to the buyer for their review and acceptance. Okay, we've spoken about the Proforma invoice. Now here's a sample showing you the 10 steps that I outlined earlier. If you look up here, that's the title, the Proforma invoice. Here's the invoice number. Look at the date and the validity period. Here's the seller's information, the name, the address, the city or country, the contact person, the email address, the phone number, the tax ID, similar details for the buyer. You see, it's followed by the buyer's information, his name, his address, country, the contact person, their email address, the phone number, and the tax ID. We're still looking at the sample Proforma invoice. If you look here, you see the product description, the item number, the description, the HS code, the quantity, the unit price, and the total price. If you move down a bit, you see the subtotal, the taxes, the shipping charges, and the grand total. If you move further down, you look at the payment terms, 50% advance payment, 50% upon delivery. It doesn't necessarily have to be this way. It will follow what you typically offer in your own business. The delivery terms, Incoterms CFR at New York Port, that's where it's going to be delivered. Remember, we talked about the currency that the transaction is going to be transacted in. In this case, it is the US dollar. The shipping method here is by sea. The port of loading is Apapa Port. The port of discharge is New York Port. Estimated shipping date from here is 30th of July. Estimated delivery date is 15th of August. Then the bank details. If you need to add the authorized signatory at the end of the document, you can create a space for the authorized signatory to sign. In conclusion, creating a Proforma invoice is like putting together a puzzle, and it's very simple if you follow the steps. Start by collecting all the details about your transaction, including who is buying and who is selling. List out the goods with precise descriptions, quantities, and prices. Next, you spell out payment and delivery terms. Be sure to include any taxes and duties. Don't forget to give your invoice a unique number, an issue date, and a validity period. After you've pieced everything together, double check it for any mistakes, sign it, and send it off to the buyer. This process keeps everything transparent and everyone on the same page. No surprises. Thank you for joining me today on Trade Tips on Trade Nuggets with Adetokunbo Adewain. I hope you can now prepare a performer invoice by yourself using the steps that we have listed. If you require a performer invoice template or need help preparing a performer invoice, please send an email to info@fortress20global.com. Watch out for our next video providing you with simple tips to facilitate your international trade transactions. Please remember to like, subscribe, and share this video. Enjoy your day, and I wish you all the very best in your international trade journey.